Hello everyone and welcome to Ginger Prime. My name's Brian if you're new around here, but if you're a returning subscriber, welcome back, you smashing legend. That's what you get for subscribing, by the way. Free compliments at the start of these videos. In fact, for subscribers, you're sexy today, and you know it. Your eyes are popping like fire. Anyway, an extra compliment, there you go. So today we're diving into New World's latest interview with the director Scott Lane. This is talking about the mistakes they've made by obviously moving too fast. This is something that I've said as a software engineer myself in terms of their development and the roadmap and essentially how they've rolled out updates as we prepare for patch 1.2 for this game. So to be clear, my feedback has been like they just need to slow down. Continuing to update and fix things and then break other things is going to wear out on the player base. Now, the other side of it is I'm sure there's going to be people coming into this video just to try and dunk on New World. It's still like the number 3 most played game on Steam. So you're welcome to not think that this game's doing well, but honestly, I think it's actually doing much, much better than maybe other content creators are alluding to. Now, all that being said, you're welcome not to like this game, and I guess I thank you for visiting this video. We're going to go through this interview brought to you by PC Gamer N. I'll have a link to it in the description of this video for you to go check out the article. Always do these, especially for the interviews. It helps us get more coverage, more interviews for any game that we cover here. So let's go ahead and dive into it. What's the post-launch experience been like for the development team? And Scott says, it's been a learning experience. We've been humbled by the response to New World, and this has led significantly more scale than we had in our alpha or our public beta. And that sufficed, obviously, some issues. We understand the importance of responding quickly, and we've been trying to fix the issues as fast as possible. Now, early on, we were so focused on fixing the issues that we didn't do a good enough job communicating with the players, and that's something that we put a lot of effort into correcting, and we'll continue to make that a focus. And this is something that is, I think, very visible to me as a fan, as a player of the game itself. I feel very communicated to over on the forums. Could they still continue to do a better job? Yes. How do we go about that way? Well, that's going to be something in constant, discussion and debate. I've got some ideas. I think they need to put more stuff on their front page. Their front page tends to be the main source of news. You got to dive into the dev tracker, and then it's basically kind of relying on us content creators to kind of fill in that gap. And not necessarily horrible, but ultimately, like if you're not subscribed here, not subscribed to anybody who's like, really following the game and covering it, there's definitely information that can be missed. And I've had and run into people who've not been aware of some of the updates or some of the news that's been shared, especially as it relates to server mergers anyway. Anyhow. So how do you juggle working on fixes alongside post-launch content? And he says, live is the top priority. If something is affecting players, it gets our full attention. We're still able to work on future content because the work is very specialized. For instance, the recent issue that we had with in-game coin required engineers who understand that part of the code, while the Void Gauntlet update was handled by a different team comprised of gameplay engineers, designers, and artists. We will continue to work on post-launch content and growing Eternum, but the live build always comes first. We are so focused on fixing issues that we didn't do a good enough job communicating to players. Scott Lane, game director. So I don't know if that was a typo or that is something dealing with the reader that I'm looking at, but that just flows really weird. We know that we've had issues, and we want everyone to know the team has worked around the clock to solve them as fast as possible. That hasn't changed now that we're live. It will continue to be our #1 priority. We know it's super important to continue aiding content or adding content features, and we plan for this for years to come. But our focus right now is to give players in the world the best experience they possibly can. I can't stress enough how much we appreciate their patience while we've been working through these launch issues. Now, have you allocated more resources to the testing patches? And he says, yes, we've added more testing resources and launched the PTR. We've made some mistakes by moving too fast, and we're still finding the balance of speed and quality. Our goal is to give every player a great experience, and as a team, we get better every day at patching and testing. Nothing hurts more than the problems in the live play space, but we put so much energy into giving players a great experience that it hurts when we fall short of that, and we'll continue pushing as hard as we can to deliver a great playing experience. So how disruptive have the exploits been on your plans for server balancing? He says exploits have been very disruptive, and we've had to put a large amount of our team's focus into correcting them, stopping the exploits from happening, and then going back and removing all the affected items from the economy. They're both very time-consuming tasks, and the percentage of players and companies using exploits is extremely small, but the vast majority of the advantages that were gained were temporary, and we're planning on to let players in their inventory while running. Even though the percentage of cheaters is small, they still can have a huge impact on the player perception, and it's no fun playing and earning something when someone else is perceived to use an exploit and to get it faster with less effort. The team is committed to maintaining a fair playing field for all players, and the majority of whom are not interested in using these exploits. They just want to play and enjoy the game. Now, the Void Gauntlet is particularly exciting as it introduces more variety when it comes to healing. Are you happy with how healing is currently balanced in PvE and PvP? And he says, we think healing is in a good place right now for both PvE, but for PvP, we're excited about providing players with more ways to counter healing. Going forward, we have no shortages of weapons that we'd like to add to New World. The bar is pretty high, and though we have made sure that they are all up to the quality level our players expect, and that they won't disrupt the delicate balance of both PvE and PvP. Balancing and tuning both current and new weapons is something we expect to do for the entire lifespan of New World. While what areas of PvE and PvP have you identified as underdeveloped? And then he says, there are a couple of areas that we're focusing in on now. First is endgame. We had to do a better job of driving players to all of our endgame activities. Right now, they're all being driven towards a very small portion of our endgame mechanics, and it was rightfully leaving them wanting more. We also need to improve the experience on the early and mid game, especially for solo players, and we're already beginning to work on content for that. Our goal is to keep responding to what players ask for. Feedback from players will continue to help shape New World's direction. Now, could you tell us more about the evolution of the territory system and how the concept changed during development? The idea of players owning land and being has been around since the early days of New World. Over the years, it's evolved into owning small settlements to holding larger territories, and eventually we've tried in the faction gameplay mechanics too. I think the progression was very natural. When we had just the settlements, we quickly found that it wasn't fun losing your settlement when you were logged off or sleeping, and this took us down a path of adding in war mechanics to ensure fairness. When and as the tournament grows, we had to decide if it would be better to have a massive companies or some type of faction system. There's something cool about keeping companies limited to a relatively small size so that you can know everyone. There's some science around the number of people that you can be friends and acquaintances with in real life, so we decided to go for mid-sized companies and introduce factions. We realize there are risks of faction imbalance, and we have some potential solutions ready. These changes also came with some other open world PvP benefits, and so far they're working out really well. This is one of those systems that will require close monitoring over time and will definitely need adjustments as we go from theory into real life. Now that territories have been claimed by many people have reached the level cap, how are you hoping to support the pioneering sensibilities of the player base going forward? Even though the perception of cheaters is small, they can still have a huge impact on player perception. Okay. I'm guessing this is the reader that essentially is being used because it's like pulling stuff from different parts of the article. Anyway, they continue. Well, there is a bunch of things that we're doing. We are creating new expeditions for players to explore, and we have new antagonists like the Viridian Knights, and we have lots of new quest types being introduced. The more dynamic content and events happening in the world. The initial land rush is a very small part of the experience, and Eternum's landscape is changing all the time as different companies and factions take control of different parts of the map. So far, we're only seeing a portion of Eternum, and we don't have any hard limits on the size of this world, so at least none that we're concerned with yet, and we aren't restricted by the server population limits either. I'm really excited to watch Eternum grow and see how new players respond to as we uncover more of its mysteries. Would you ever consider starting up a fresh server so that players can experience the initial gold rush again? And he says, I know that players have asked for this, and it's something that we're talking about. I like the idea of some sort of seasonal mode where we don't bifurcate the player base, but at this point, these concepts are still in very early discussion, and we don't have any news to share on that on this horizons. Now, players are restricted to one character per server. Is there any concern that without an alt account, server populations might age over time? And he says, no, we have no immediate plans to raise the level cap, but I'm fairly certain that we'll entertain those thoughts in the future. Because of our faction and territory control systems, I do think that we'll see players creating second characters on other worlds because of the experience that could be very different. Will there be any new content for lower level players to access while they're leveling? And he says, we understand that some players would like to focus more on solo gameplay, and we're doing more to make that viable through alternative quest lines and more solo oriented gameplay itself. And then finally, the last question is what other quality of life changes are in the pipeline? He says, we introduced a big one that players have been asking for, which is that players now run faster while on roads. Looking into the future, we're looking on ways to help connect players who are looking for expeditions and adding in more quests and crafting markets or markers. There are also map improvements coming, such as more and much more. Most of this comes directly from player requests through the forums and in-game feedback or on Reddit. And for all of those, we have been asking when we're planning to let the players access their inventory while running. Hey! All right, that's actually, I think, a really good thing to take away from it. At the core of it, guys, I think there's a lot of really good information that we can glean from this article and from this interview. Again, please go check it out. Give the article some love so that way it can get its views and run its ads on it and it can do well so we can have more interview content as well. Guys, if there's anything that you need in regards to New World content, please let me know. I'd love to try to make those videos for you. I know that we've got some stuff on the horizon, and as I've been just obviously knee deep into trying to play Final Fantasy XIV and fight that Q boss, note that you've probably seen New World scale back a little bit in terms of content, but note that I am thoroughly still playing it. I'm very close to actually finally hitting the level cap. I like to slow play games, and that's just kind of how I do it. But anyway, thanks guys for being here, for watching, for listening. If this is the video that gets you to subscribe to the channel, let me know so I can welcome you officially to it. But outside of that, guys, I hopefully have a fantastic day. Hope to see you in my next video. But until then, take care.
Yes, Brian, teach me how to heal on a controller. Taking time to learn, it feels awkward. I'm using your layout for buttons, so I'm looking forward to that video. Hey, he's back. Glad you're feeling better. Can't wait for your Sage controller guide in the future. That's right, baby.
That's right, baby.